never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, beautiful people. How are you? It's bloody warm sort of a Tuesday in most parts of the country today. Victoria sweltering its bum off, and parts of it burning, unfortunately. I know the area is currently on fire down along through the Otway Ranges pretty well. I grew up down around that area, and those fires ain't going to stop much short of the ocean. I'm not sure, I haven't been tracking today, but they did have an act and watch out for areas like Anglesey, down along the Great Ocean Road, and Port Campbell, I think, was just out of the reach of the fire, and the wind's blowing the other way. But it sort of started on the edge of Colac and is taking out a huge portion of that Western Victorian area. There are many centres set up in both Colac and Geelong to take in people who have had to evacuate. So our thoughts are with those people. And belatedly, I'm very sorry, I forgot to mention this over the weekend or in the show that we did yesterday, what's happened to our brothers and sisters in New Zealand. For those of you that aren't aware, there's been a massive, or a couple of massive landslides, and it might be understating a little bit what's happened at one particular site. It's not a landslip, it's a mountain that has slid down. Unfortunately, where it slid down was onto a holiday camp that did have a number of holiday people staying in it, from tents and caravans through to motorhomes. There are some very disturbing stories coming out of witnesses, from witnesses to what happened there. Certainly, the land slippage would be hard enough in itself to deal with. If you were at least unaffected or not injured, you were going to help those who were affected badly, and that happened. There were a number of people trapped in a toilet block that had been relocated quite some distance with the slippage of the mountain down the hill. They were trapped in that toilet block, and they were calling for help and assistance. The locals or the other campers who were there immediately, the civilians, immediately leapt into action. But unfortunately, there are now stories emerging that when New Zealand authorities got on site, they stopped the civilians from working to rescue the people in that toilet block, pulled them back off the site, declared it an unsafe site, which, duh, and then sat there until somebody made a decision that it was safe to go in, by which time many, if not all of those people, had stopped screaming, had stopped yelling for help. So I haven't found out exactly what happened with that, but a truly, truly horrible event that's happened in New Zealand. And it's not the only one. Thankfully, not a huge loss of life in the next story I'll tell you about, which is happening in Sicily. Now, in Sicily at the moment, there is a 5-kilometre long piece of the Sicilian coastline that has simply fallen off the island. And yes, there were a number of houses, a number of constructions, buildings, all sorts of things along the cliffs, along that 5-mile area. It started out as something that was about 1 kilometre long, but it has now progressed, and you've probably seen vision on mainstream media where half houses are hanging over these cliffs. The people of the small town that this is drastically affecting, clearly, this is life-changing for them, and it doesn't look like this erosion, this collapse is going to end anytime soon. In fact, they are predicting a major storm that will be bringing a huge amount of rain and ocean to that particular face of the island, and they're expecting there to be a great deal more subsidence. It's dropped in some areas sort of 30, 40 metres, 100 feet or more. and there have been large fissures opened up on other parts of the island. Also, over on the mainland, if you like, in and around Naples, more fissures opening up there with the Campi del Fregri, or whatever it's called. That is a huge supervolcano caldera, which encompasses a number of major Italian cities, Naples being probably the most significant and largest of them all. So, a lot of earth grumblings going on at the moment. And if you are following many people who talk about earth grumblings and rumblings, they're probably telling you that you can expect a lot more of them. And the earth seems to be gearing up for some sort of volcanic event. Now, depending on which one of these people you follow or watch, you're likely to be traumatized by some of them because they speak of it in such really frightening terms. Others don't speak in quite as frightening terms. And certainly, should the worst happen, it would be a very frightening event. Be prepared, do the old Boy Scout thing. I mean, not with the Boy Scout leader in the tent. I just mean be prepared. But you know what I mean, I guess. So, yeah, there's all of that. All right, let's have a little bit of a look at what you've got to say today. I see Gomez Adams is back in the house. I love seeing that name, Gomez Adams. Hello, Connie. You were first in the house tonight. Lovely to see you. Judith and John, the gorgeous Sunflower and Rick. I hope you guys are going well. Tony, how's your feet, brother? A big round of applause, folks, in the chat for Tony. Tony is, of course, our stringer in Melbourne. What does the stringer mean? It doesn't mean that he, drags around on a piece of string various rounds of people and sandwiches and beer, unfortunately. What it does mean that he goes and supplies pictures from events happening in Melbourne, but around Victoria for us at his own cost. The only thing we've supplied him is a couple of smiles, a little bit of hope, and a T-shirt. But he does a magnificent job on our behalf, and I can't thank Tony enough. So, mate, thanks for everything you did yesterday from the Melbourne march. It was interesting. We were discussing it at the time. The Melbourne march started at Flinders Street Station and was expected to end at Parliament House. Now, from Flinders Street Station to Parliament House, there's sort of a quick way of getting there, and then there's the way that they went yesterday. I didn't realise that there was a Invasion Day march happening in Melbourne and in Sydney and in Brisbane. And we'll get to that in a minute. And, of course, they wanted to be the kinds of folks that they are. So the Invasion Day march started in Melbourne at Parliament House and was marching down to Flinders Street. So what they did is had them walk a huge distance from Flinders Street, basically walking west, a number of city blocks, up, turned north a number of city blocks, then turned west again and started heading back towards the Parliament House. It was a huge walk for a group described in Melbourne in size as maybe 5,000. The ABC must have been doing those numbers, because even on the pictures that we saw from Tony and post the event, we've seen more pictures, although they're not showing a huge amount of pictures for the March for Australia event because, well, by and large, it was pretty boring. The Indigenous parade, crying out, whinging, moaning, Indigenous Invasion Day event, that was where the media were, because that's where all the bloody bullshit was happening. What a surprise, what a surprise, what a surprise. And it couldn't have happened at a better time with Pauline Hanson's new movie being released yesterday. Yes, I have paid my $14.99. I have successfully managed, after a number of, can't figure out why, attempts, to actually get to watch it. I think I've probably paid for it twice, but I don't mind, because it supplied so many laughs. It's worth paying for twice. I think I know the exact moment. You've probably heard already, Holly Valance has done a song based on one of her old hit music songs, by the way, called Kiss Kiss My Ass. It is just a stunning song, hilarious. But apparently when Holly saw it, Pauline is quoted as saying that she watched the movie basically the day before it was released to everybody else, and she spat water across the room at one particular gag. I reckon I know what gag that would be because I did about the same thing. And it has something to do with the burqa. I'm just going to leave it. Many of you will have seen it, I'm sure, and you're probably talking about it in the chat already. But from a perspective of how does it present for the Australian people, I think it presents very, very well. Pauline is the heroine of the movie, but she doesn't play a large role in the movie. The four individuals that do play a large role are bloody hilarious and are done so well, including Princess Stacey, who I must say is just a creation. The only thing Princess Stacey was missing, I think, was a fart joke at the end. But I've got lowbrow humor, and those of you that have seen the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Or if you don't, that's probably better for you. Who else is in the house tonight? I haven't said hello to. G'day, Daniel. I'm merrily scrolling down through the chat and looking at things. I'm not saying hello to anybody. Andrew D. Smith, nice to have you in. Bulls Nuts, good to see you back in the house. I think it's been a little while since I've seen you. Toxic. And Dave, the distiller, is back in the house. I hope you are bubbling away quietly there in your kitchen and things are progressing along nicely. Might have to pop over again for another sample. G'day, Robert. Nice to have you on. AG Lover. What is not to love about silver, folks? Let me just have a quick glance at what Ainsley Bullion spot price is. That would be $160.21. Now, other people will say, oh, the spot's higher than that because you're looking at another bullion dealer. Or you might be looking at somewhere else. What you want when you are buying silver is the cheapest spot price you can find. Okay? And that's the cheapest spot price I can find, $160.21. Today, moving on the markets, it has been a day full of rather interesting movements. Out of the box this morning, we wound up climbing to an all-time record, another record, $117.10, well, 14 US. $117 US. Now, it's dropped back, and it did drop considerably after it reached that high. It dropped back to around $103 US. So it lost $14 in maybe half an hour. It was ridiculous trading. And then it started climbing its way back. And right now, it's sitting at 110.85, call it 111 US dollars an ounce. But it is still not matched to the physical price of silver in the Asian markets. I speak particularly of China, Tokyo in Japan, and the Middle East markets, of course, with Dubai. And now India has been brought into the mix as well as a strong buyer. So be prepared. There is going to be a little bit of volatility in our stock, but I would suggest to you that don't go selling your silver just yet. And I haven't had time to upload the pictures, but I can tell you that Ainsley Bullion in Melbourne today had about 20 people lined up outside their door waiting to get in. They were so busy. Now, I've had a few phone calls about that today. Peaked today via the chart at $170.71. That's Australian dollars, I'm gathering, Vincenzo. So 20 odd people deep at the front door of Ainsley, which I think is not unusual at the moment. People understand that something pretty weird and wonderful, if you happen to hold silver, is happening right now. The silver gold silver ratio is sitting at 45. 45.92. So I'd call it 46. But even still, that is getting pretty good. And not for me to tell you what to do with your investment. If you've got silver and if you want some gold, I would keep looking at that gold to silver ratio. At the moment, that means it's about 46 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Keep your eye on that ratio. It gets down to 40, maybe 38. If it gets to 32, you're basically at 1 for gold. And, well, not quite 1 but you know what I mean. It's a very exciting time. And even conservative market proponents who ordinarily I would never watch because they are so dry, but American market professionals who are doing these sort of blog posts on the market and have hitherto been dead silent or dismissive of what's been going on in the bullion markets, and particularly on the COMEX, well, they've woken up. They've woken up with a hell of a shock, and they've started. Panic is a strong word, but you see the way that they are energized about reporting about what's going on here. They don't understand it because it's something out of market norms, and everything the market would normally be able to do to stop this has failed. So it's new ground for many of them, and I think it's that wake-up pill, if you like, that many of them need. New details coming to light about the quantum financial service or system as well. The QFS, I've heard, is due to go live and public on the 1st of February. But we've heard a lot of dates in the past, haven't we? So let's just sit back and wait to see what happens on the 3rd of February. Now, today, I've talked to you about how hot it was. Now, I'll be honest, it was only about 37 degrees where I am today. But in Victoria, anywhere between 40 and 45 was the norm. I got a message from Pete from Pinaroo with a picture that said 53 degrees. 53. So that's on the Victorian South Australian border. It was like 46 inside, 53 outside. Unfreaking believable. Did you go for a swim? Anthony Albanese was caught going for a swim. Might have been shortly after the screening of the Super Progressive movie, where an older Albo, I must say, because he's had a daughter. So he's a little older in the movie portrayal. Ah, Robert. I remember you, Robert. Absolutely. Thank you again. I don't think I'm going to be getting too many silver rounds put in my hand anymore. Not at, what are they? $180 each, I think, if you're going to buy an Ainsley 1 ounce round at the moment. So I do thank everybody who did cross my palm with silver, so to speak, over the last few years. I have pretty much, I think I've got everything I was ever given. I think I've had to sell everything I ever was able to buy for myself, and have slowly been able to buy a little bit here and there. So I'm enjoying this ride from a perspective of how frustrating it is that I didn't get in on it much earlier. I am living that dream, as many others are, but I'm still talking to people who don't even have 1 ounce, let alone 10 or 20 or 100 or 600 or however many you've got. And they're still, oh yeah, silver, oh yeah. Okay. I don't know that I can help you any further. I've been trying, but anyway, let's get on to what happened yesterday. And I think yesterday in Melbourne, really great march, some really great speakers, which thankfully, and thankful to Tony, we were able to hear. Also, we were able to hear and see some great speeches from the march out of Sydney. Beck Freedom's speech, I thought, was very, very good, along with a number of other people who stood up on the stage in Sydney. Then there, of course, was the Gold Coast event, which, by conservative estimates, had 3,000 to 5,000 people marching down along along the Esplanade to Cavill, where speeches then happened under the Surfers Paradise sign, I think, and people gathered on the beach and up into the mall so they could enjoy their Australia Day in Surfers Paradise. I've got to say, one thing that impressed the bloody hell out of me was the number of young people getting up to speak at these events. Gold Coast is notable because I think there were 3 or 4 young men who got up to speak, and they spoke powerfully. They spoke with great wisdom, and I was really, really chuffed. I'm starting to sound like my father now. Oh, those young people did so well, and I hate that, but they did. The fact of the matter is, and I'm sure you're the same as me, you don't expect young people these days, by and large, and I'm speaking in broad terms here, to be able to speak. I mean, they can usually throw a few coherent sentences together, like, give me the latest whatever drink fad it is or food fad, or, are you playing this game or whatever. But you don't expect them to be able to articulate terribly much beyond that. I have to say that the speakers that I saw around the nation yesterday, and we didn't see them all, not by a long shot. I really would love to be able to get us to a point with FBN where we have stringers in every city. I mean, we pinched Chris Scovery's vision yesterday, and thanks, Chris, again, off YouTube. I noticed yesterday, Vince and I both noticed yesterday, a huge lack of the main streamers coming out to stream. In fact, our live stream was the only one covering things nationally, as near as I can tell. And we were able to jump in on the back of certain other streams off other platforms, including Kick, which I'll be honest, I'd never even heard of until yesterday. But the boys, Ozpill, who live streamed on Kick, live streamed himself and nothing else. They live streamed his speech and turned the camera off. Not useful, not helpful, not to me, but certainly not to give the message more chance to get out either. So if I could ask you a favor next time, Ozpill, keep your cameras going. I mean, I did see it stayed going for a little while he was talking to his adoring public, and all power to him. But it's important that the message gets out on as many platforms as possible, not just a singular message. And I'm only saying you because it was your feed I was following. There may well have been others there doing their own thing too. But this is what we want FBN to be. Between Vince and myself, we want anybody who's setting up a rally like we've seen in the last day, and we are going to continue to see going through this year. If you are looking for one place to be able to go and click on to see rallies from around the country, then we want to be able to provide that service. And we're lucky that we've got Tony in Melbourne and somebody else who might come along and help. Yesterday, I had Dan Somerville, who many of you know from Queensland. Dan was the guy who provided the pictures, and I can't thank him enough for the event yesterday on the Gold Coast. I forget who we fell onto yesterday afternoon from the Brisbane event. But unfortunately, as is the thing with streaming from a mobile phone, and if there is particularly a march leading up to that speech event, the mobile phones get very hot while they're streaming, and they do chew through the battery. So what most of us do is plug in an external battery and make sure that it feeds directly into the phone. What that essentially does is you've got a battery working very, very hard at both ends. It's working to provide all the power that the phone needs to keep transmitting signal, while working really hard to suck as much battery out of this external battery as it can to keep doing the things it's meant to be doing. And eventually they overheat, or they just go flat. And that's unfortunately what happened to us. Halfway through Malcolm Roberts' speech, we missed Pauline's totally, and I'm not sure if Bob Catter was there, but would have loved to have had Bob's speech on. There were a couple of other speeches that were very, very well received, I'm led to believe, but I haven't got any evidence of them. So, folks, if you want to be part of our camera team, particularly for any of these sorts of events, if you regularly go to them, it's not a hard thing to do, and we can give you a few tips on where you should be so that we can get some audio and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, as Vince says, 40 degrees doesn't help either. So anybody that was brave enough to venture out into the heat yesterday and hold a mobile phone up in the air to live stream, hats off to you, but put it back on again because you don't want to get sunburned. But yeah, we would love your help. We can't do it without you. And what we can promise at this point in time is a Stringer t-shirt. You never know what else might come from that. But a Stringer t-shirt is not to be sneezed at. You can go and ask Tony about that. So, as I said, there were Invasion Day events set up in protest for Australia Day. The usual whingers, the usual whiners. There has been one particular picture which has been shown around the nation and has received a certain amount of criticism. Here we see old mate in his wife beater. I see he got dressed up to come out for the parade, educating one of the younger members of his community dressed in an American football jersey the proper way to burn the Australian flag. He says it's not everybody's flag. Not everybody agrees it's their flag. How would it be if I got myself and some 13-year-old white kid to walk into Queen Street Mall and burn an Aboriginal flag? How would you feel about that? Because you've stated that the flag that you burnt doesn't mean anything to you. Would it help you to understand that there are many people who tolerate the Aboriginal flag that you wave as an indulgence more than anything else? Don't show it much respect. Let you wave it. How would it be if we started setting them on fire like you set the one we have on fire? Will you take that on the chin like the other Australians have that were there, didn't do anything about it? I wouldn't expect to at your protest, but you wouldn't have been brave enough to do that down at Pauline's protest, would you? So, thank you, old mate. Mujiri or something this fella's name is. Thank you for educating Australia that it's okay to burn flags you don't agree with. Anybody know where I can purchase an Aboriginal flag? They're pretty hard to get. If I was to ask for an Australian flag, I'd have 50 of them sent to me by good, loving people like yourselves. I guarantee if I ask for an Aboriginal flag, I won't get sent one. So this fella has been able to teach the young bloke, filled with American culture, I notice, not Aboriginal culture. That's I'm pretty confident that's a gridiron T-shirt that he's wearing. Unfortunately, he's got the right idea, I suppose. He's got the same sort of paint they put on their face, the gridiron football players, but they put the black stuff on their cheeks to stop the reflection of the lights up into their eyes. So I'm imagining that young fella is maybe trying to do the same thing. Aboriginal flags, folks. And do I have to have a wife beater on to set it on fire just to stay in theme? I'd hate to upset anybody. Let me know, carl@vofhq.com. And if you want to abuse me, see if I care. I'm a bit like Pauline in that matter. Does not worry me at all. And you will find out that in the Super Progressive movie. Now, you are not going to see a Super Progressive movie in the cinemas unless you've bought tickets to go to the state release, if you like. Brisbane's was last night. I'm not sure where it is tonight, but they're doing Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Hobart. I want to say they're doing Cairns and a few other different places. So it'll all be knocked over by the end of this week. But you can get the movie online now. A superprogressivemovie.com.au, I think it is. It might be .com. And I can tell you, it is very funny. Very funny. The people who wrote it deserve to be commended. Some of the gags, I think I'm going to watch it again because some of the gags are visual, some of the gags are oral. So you start, that doesn't mean they suck. That just means you've got to listen. Oral, not oral. I beg your pardon. Oral. And sometimes they're a combination of both. So it's one of those movies, I think, that is well worth a second watch because there is so much in it. So much in it. And congratulations to all and sundry involved with it. I think you've got a huge hit on your hands. Pauline has been saying that wouldn't it be great if the song went to #1 on iTunes or Spotify or, all of those platforms. And I think it has. She said then Triple J would have to play it, the Holly Valance Kiss Kiss My Ass song, in their Hottest 100. I don't know that that's going to happen or not, but it will be interesting to see whether or not the ABC or, well, I'm pretty sure the FM radio stations will pick it up, even if they only play it as a joke. They'll be playing chunks of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I heard it this morning on some of them. So not that I listen a great deal to any of them, but it does happen that way. So the laughter is certainly stopping in Canberra. Pauline Hanson and One Nation have been able to, prior to the lead up or prior to the release of the movie, and in fact prior to the breakup of the Liberal National Coalition last week, have been shown in polls once again to have stretched their lead above the Liberals to something like 6 points, and Labor have dropped back again even closer. Now, one of the, I guess, concerning things for Albo Sleazy, and there must be a number of very concerning things for Albo Sleazy, is this huge and what appears to be immediate rise in popularity for One Nation. Now, I don't think for 1 second that this is an immediate rise. One Nation have been bubbling away and working extremely hard to engender, I think, a true Australian spirit, I think is the right way to say that. A true Aussie, trying to get us to remember, I guess, what our true Aussie spirit was. Unfortunately, the governments, the bureaucrats in particular, who do come in for a mention in a super progressive movie, they are the problems. Now, Pauline in the movie comes across as the Prime Minister, and she comes across as a very caring Prime Minister trying to look after Albo and his woke crew. There is nothing that the character says in that cartoon that anybody should find offensive. Most Australians will find what that character says direct and honest and true more than anything else. So I think One Nation have been extremely smart, and the producers have been extremely smart in making this a streamable movie, because you've got to pay $14.99 to watch it. Now, those who would detest One Nation and would detest Pauline Hanson would more than likely refuse to pay the $14.99 to watch it. So we'll be hamstrung a little bit in how they can attack it, because they'll only have limited knowledge of what's actually in it and how the story works. They'll only have access to the trailers, if you like. So we'll have to wait for enough of them to get their next dole check to come in so that they can figure out if they can spare $14.99. And I've been in that position. I am in that position. I had to think long and hard, can I afford $14.99 to watch this? But I thought it important enough that we needed to talk about it. I needed to show you, needed to tell you. I can't show you because I think I might break a few things if I show you copyright-wise, so I won't. But all I can say is I urge you, regardless of whether you're a Pauline supporter or not, I have not laughed out loud at any movie, let alone an Australian movie, in I don't know how many years. This thing has been written in a truly Australian humour style. The rest of the world are probably never going to get it. And in 20 years' time, we might look back on this movie as a bit like we look back at Foot Rot Flats, the movie, which I still think is one of the best cartoons ever made. But anyway, when that came out, this, I think, has the ability to change and help one nation win over a nation. There will always be the haters, but this is one of the best political ideas I think I have ever seen. And I think it's going to make the Liberal Party suffer badly. The Uni Party are, I think, very soon to lose one of their leaders. Susan Ley is predicted to, well, I'm hearing two things. They're trying to get her to resign so they don't have to oust her in a party room bloodbath. They're saying it's, the better part of valor, except that it's going to happen, and take it gracefully, wish everybody all the best, take a step back to the backbench and, spend a few months there, and then we'll have you back up into a ministry job. There's a certain amount of resistance to that plan, I'm told, and she plans to fight to the bitter end for a leadership that in Liberal circles increasingly, but certainly through national circles, is doomed if she has anything to do with it. Increasingly, though, the Liberal Party are starting to realise that the death certificate has been issued, and the lady from White Lady Funerals seems to be resisting the paperwork. What can we do from there? I don't know. Oh, quick pick from yesterday. This was an image taken of the M1 highway. I think it was around Oxenford, Helensvale area. Somebody had gone to great expense to hang Australian flags on each panel of that fence overlooking the highway, until this fella turned up. Now, don't be enamoured by his high vis. This numpty is not working for the council and didn't remove the flags for any other reason in that he didn't like them. At least that's what we're hearing. But we would like to know who he is so that we could find the flags and have them returned to their owners. This fella has committed theft, if nothing else, and here he is trying to lecture the people who pulled him up on Australia Day to say, mate, WTF? I mean, seriously, dude, what are you doing? So there's plenty of people I know on the Gold Coast that watch this show. Plenty of people, I would say, around the Ormo, Pimpamar, Helensvale, Coomera, Upper Coomera areas might know a mullet like that. And if you do, then, well, by all means, send me the details. I'll pass them along to the police on your behalf. But I do know that there are some interested parties who would like their flags returned. So if that's possible, let's see if we can make that a reality. That'd be bloody great. We were talking about Bob Hawke the other night. We talk about him a lot, but never usually in high regard. And tonight, I don't think that's going to be any different. I was talking about my time in Canberra, where he was still Prime Minister, and they had a little room for him at the Canberra Casino where he could go and drink and spend his money, or our money, or whoever's money we're paying for that night. And then they'd whisk him out the back blind drunk, and not through the public entrances. He never got seen blind drunk. But people have reacted, and they've also gone on to mention that he was part of so many other things. Well, there are some historical references available here. Now, a picture in a fraction of a second does not necessarily give you the entire story, but I'm not completely sure what that fella on the left there is trying to do to Bob's ear. And I'm not completely sure what the woman that Bob seems to be nuzzling into is well, doesn't look like Hazel, put it that way, or the other one that he married. What was her name? Nearly had it. Started with a B. But the person I'm interested in is the blonde in the front there with the Collingwood head scarf. Do we think that could possibly be a very young Katie Gallagher hanging out with Australia's drunken alcoholic Prime Minister, who had more than one serious question asked of him about his involvement in Masonic rites, sex trafficking, and of course his involvement in all sorts of satanic ritual abuse, some of which has been detailed and chronicled by a couple of survivors. I think Rachel Vaughan has something to say about Bob Hawke, and I'm not even sure if she's still alive. Actually, one of Bob Hawke's daughters was very badly traumatized by something. Hazel, the mother, understood that. May have had something to do with how their marriage eventually wound up breaking up, but I think that would only be supposition. Bob's daughter was suffering all sorts of mental health issues, we were told, and she came out on a number of occasions and told some horrible things about her dad, all of which were hushed up by the mainstream media or not put up at all, or a variety of things. So now, many of those things have come to light. Bob's involvement in all sorts of things have come to light. And if that is a young Katie Gallagher, pardon me, sitting there bottom right front, I have some serious questions about her as well. Mind you, we've all got serious questions about that cow, haven't we? All right, got a couple of things just to finish off with. I found this one to be absolutely one of the best stories out of the Australian I've ever seen. Uber has abandoned its 2030 net zero pledge as its chief executive signaled that drivers and governments were turning their backs on electric cars. Then best-selling thriller author John Green told me yesterday that hundreds of state-of-the-art electric buses in SDL can be remotely switched off by the commies in China. That is absolutely true. There is one American city who bought, I think, 40 or 60 of these new buses, and when they found out that China could turn them off with a flick of a switch, they parked them up and haven't been able to sell them, but they're not using them. So Uber is going back to petrol, people, or diesel. And by the sounds of it, electricity is not a favored use for many in the Uber realm. I guess because if you get a good Uber day, you're going to need to find a charger and be on it probably about the time you want to be out on the road. And these things don't charge in 5 minutes now, do they? Oh, no. No. All right, before I go off tonight, I just want to leave you with a picture which I think is truly beautiful. This was yesterday morning at Roxby Downs. This was as the sun was sort of coming up at Roxby Downs yesterday morning, and it turned into this. Thank you to the boys out there who are updating me with the job and obviously the heat out there. Bloody hot day out there today, folks. Enough to make you sweat from parts of your body that you didn't know you could. And I had one of those as well. Wouldn't get you an electric vehicle, lady. That I am very pleased to hear. Neither would I. We've got a lot more suggestions coming through on our webpage, vofhq.com. That's vofhq.com. What do you think Pauline Hanson must do to gain the people's trust if she was given the privilege of governing this country? What would she have to do in the first term of that government to guarantee that you would vote her in a second time? What are the KPIs, the key performance indicators? And I did see a number of new ones that have gone up today, all of which are very valid. I'm going to need to have a talk with Vince about this at some stage to see if we can put these into some sort of a list and allow people to develop, a top 20 or a top 10 ideas that we can then push forward, if you like, if it's the right way to say it. We can then push forward to One Nation, whether or not they choose to read them, do anything with them, accept them or not, who knows? But it will be our little way of trying to help. There are other little ways we are trying to help. And yes, I know you probably just fell off your poof. That's the thing you put your feet on. When I said I'm helping. Well, I'm not really helping. I've offered, in one particular regard, some advice and an article, a thing, not an article like a newspaper article or anything like that, but a thing that they should very, very seriously consider putting to use over the next 2 years leading up to the next election. Some friends of mine have come up with this thing, and all I've done is make some introductions and try and kick open a gate for them. But I do believe this thing, should One Nation choose to use it, has an ability to unite the country, but more specifically, it has an ability to unite all of the lesser parties and potentially unite them around a One Nation bid for the lower house. So for that to happen, for Pauline to become Prime Minister, if you like, a lot has to happen. But for One Nation to gain leadership, and let's say Barnaby, who already is sitting in the House, retains his seat at the next election, and there is a number of others, certainly enough to be the majority in the lower house, elected under the One Nation brand. Barnaby, at that point, I think, would become the Prime Minister. Pauline would need to make the decision either prior to the next federal election to resign from the Senate. She would have to resign from the Senate, and then she would need to try and win the seat. And where is she? She's in the Scenic Rim. So Buckholz or somebody like that is the bloke she'd have to knock off, a Liberal, probably not difficult, but they would put a huge fight against her, because to have and they've done it to her before, to have her try and change houses and not get her elected in the new parliament, it kills a bird beautifully. 2 stones, gets her out of one house and stops her getting into the other one. So she's a wake up to that, I would have thought. And hopefully that's not the way. What could happen is that we could see the Nationals come together in a coalition with them. And I think we will already see, judging by what I saw out of the speeches yesterday at Brisbane, a loose coalition between the Katter Party and potentially Clive's mob going forward. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Clive is sitting in the sidelines at the moment. He is putting out press releases. He is not mentioning One Nation by name, but he is saying the country needs choice and changes. He's not even offering, Palmer United or Unite Australia or whatever it's called this week up. So let's just see where Clive's loyalties lie. Vincenzo, you have popped yourself in for a reason.
Yes. I have a question for you. Due
Go
to the
ahead.
fact that the South Australian election is the first one in this role that's happening, do you think that Pauline Hanson needs to determine this way forward now? Because in 2 months' time, there's an election in this state, and considering Liberal and Labor have been seated in the power since 1908, just for anybody, because I have a Facebook on my page that I've done showing that on my Facebook. Yeah, I have a Facebook. You know how much I hate Facebook. But do you think that they need to start giving this answer out? And is that perhaps something that's coming with this February 1st special mention?
I think that One Nation will now very seriously be looking at every state. The way to federal control is state control. So that is the usual path where political parties wind up gaining some traction in each of the states and wind up holding power. One Nation needs to put people up in every seat in Victoria and every seat in in South Australia. South Australia being the first election, I think, this year, state election, and I want to say Victoria is the second. They need people to go up in every one of those seats. Now, Vince, when is the South Australian election? I want to say it's in March or April, isn't it?
Yeah, March.
March.
So we got 2 months, basically.
So unless One Nation already have a large group of already pre-vetted One Nation candidates for South Australia that all happen to happily live in one of the areas that they can stand in a seat, like they all don't live in Adelaide and they all don't live in, you've got to cover every seat essentially to give yourself a chance. Then yes, if One Nation were to win, they don't even have to win, have an overwhelming win. I think in South Australia at the moment, is there one Nation politician?
There used to be Susan Gaines. I'm not sure that was in the Senate, but I can guarantee at least 2 seats that I know of. That's the one that I'm sitting in, and Elizabeth, both have their One Nation candidates living in those areas.
Okay, so provided you can get enough of them doing that, and even if she could get half a dozen elected to the South Australian Parliament, not necessarily winning, not even necessarily gaining the balance of power, it would put a rocket up every other state and the federals as well. That would frighten the bejesus out of them. And if she came through with more than half a dozen, you would see all sorts of accusations coming out in the mainstream media. They're already doing it, but it's gentle by comparison to what they will do should One Nation actually look like they can be a serious contender to lead this country. Carl, they said One Nation is going to put up candidates in every seat. Yes, I know they said that, but then it comes down to the quality of those candidates, and it also comes down to what are you going to do to support those candidates, Pauline? Now, Clive Palmer put people into every seat in the last couple of elections, but didn't support many of them. And when I say didn't support, he said, yeah, go for it. Go hard. I'll give you a few cornflutes, or I'm going to charge you less for those cornflutes. Because he knew in many regions, these people didn't really have their heart in it, would be the first one. Oh, I'm doing it as a favour to a friend. Oh, I'm never going to win, so I'm just giving it a go. And if you're approaching it with that attitude, then of course you're never going to win. And if you're not going to put your own money out of your own pocket into your own campaign, well, why would you expect Pauline to put money out of her pocket or the party's pocket into yours for the campaign? I'm sure they should. Every candidate should get a base amount that the party says, well, this is, because the party can't say everybody gets $100,000, right? They might be able to say everybody gets $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 if they're lucky. but I don't know how many seats there are in the South Australian Parliament. Call it 70. So it gets pretty exy after a while. Oh, it's okay. Gina's backing her. Well, is she? Do you know that? I certainly don't know that.
Actually, yes, we do.
What?
They're not. She's not backing her in a way. Well, Pauline's talked about it already.
So now you're qualifying yourself. Now you're qualifying yourself. Is Gina backing her or not?
She is assisting, not backing.
Right. So thanks. She is not backing her. Yeah. The assistance she's offered is to introduce 3 mining people, I think, to Donald Trump at a Mar-a-Lago thing for $100,000 donation to One Nation each. That's smart, but that's not her donating $300,000 to Pauline.
No,
and look, she may well be putting money into it, but don't pull me up, Vince, when you can't qualify what you're saying. All right.
I am just going from what I have actually heard. She has assisted in giving them transport to various locations.
I would have used the word assisted if I wanted to, but I didn't. I used a different word, and you wanted to come in and pull me up on it. Now you've changed the definition of what I was saying. So let's not do that.
Okay, that's him telling me off, people. So I'll leave.
That's the spirit. It also throws my train of thought, which makes it more difficult to continue.
Sorry, mate. Didn't mean to do that.
So these sorts of things, little things, but words mean things, folks. Okay? And don't try and change the words I use, because in most cases, the words I use are used for a specific reason. And some of you figure that out, and some of you can't, sadly. So it's all good. It's all a learning experience for us all. So we shall press on, push on, and learn on. And I do recommend you go and learn from watching a super progressive movie with One Nation. I didn't want to talk about them all night, but it certainly is a very funny movie. And I'll be amazed if you don't come away with it thinking it's probably one of the best Australian things you've seen in an age or an eternity. So I commend it to you, and I hope you have a bloody good time. Sit around with a beer and laugh your ass off with it, because I know I will the second time I watch it. If you are heading out tomorrow, I believe weather in different parts of Victoria is just going to be horrendous again tomorrow, with total fire bans in the Wimmera and Mallee and certain other areas. So, folks, stay safe, stay out of the heat, keep hydrated, and more particularly, keep your animals hydrated, okay? I was reading an article this morning, or I think it was this morning or last night, about vets saying that many animals are coming in dehydrated at this time, just family pets, because there is not enough cool water. You might think it's okay for your animal to drink warm water, but would you drink warm water? I guess if you had nothing else, you would. But some cats can be fussy, and apparently warm water is not something they like. So fresh, cool water, or at least a bubbler or something that sort of stops it from stagnating, apparently will make all the difference to your pussy if it's getting thirsty. And on that note, I think I'll let you drive home very safely. Be careful. Watch out for the dickheads. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!